Yo, yo, yo. Today is Whiskey Friday. Thanks for joining us. I'm with my buddy Curtis. We are drinking whiskey. Today I have a bit of a challenge. I only have this much left of my Glenlivet. We'll end this. So that's what I'm looking at. But instead, I also decided to grab a beer. So, Curtis, what are you drinking? What do you got going on?
I'm going to probably finish off this Hepburn's Choice, I think. I'm about the same boat as you for size, but I also have a similar amount in my glass. So
okay, so we're gonna have to get together. Yeah, we'll have to get together after this and just keep this going because this is a major challenge. And just for anybody that's joining for the first time, the way we have been doing Whiskey Friday, this was an idea that came about, I don't know, man, like 3 years ago for me, where I wanted to sort of capture what it's like to just sit down and have a drink and have a much more casual conversation, have a whiskey. And that's what this is about. So, there's all sorts of things that you can do, blogs and podcasts and webinars. And I've got lots of stuff like that. This is really where we're just hanging out, drinking, and having fun, and we want to keep it open forum. So anybody that's on the comments, we really encourage you guys to participate. Just say stuff. There's probably more swearing in this than anywhere else, which is good. and today we're talking about it's something that I've been working a lot with my clients, and Curtis and I have been chatting a lot about this, is how using habits, using routines, using things to be able to manage your performance, manage your mindset, so that you don't end up just running around like a crazy person all the time. I think a lot of people, everywhere I go, people are busy. They're doing lots of stuff. And so building the right routines, building the right systems, making your business, making your life systemic, rather than focusing on like, what am I going to do and getting wrapped up is really what we're talking about today. I also have some chocolate, and I'm going to share with you something that else I'm going to start testing out. Have you seen these, my man? These whiskey
cigar?
sticks? No, they're whiskey sticks. So they're I bought these online. If anybody's heard about these or if they've tried them, post in the comments here. It's a company called Time and Oak. These guys should sponsor the show. But Time and Oak, they're whiskey sticks, and what their claim is that you can put these into any bottle of whiskey, and it will age it by 3 years. So it's like 20. You put it in the bottle for overnight, and it will age it by 3 years. So I've got these ones. These are regular flavored. The other one is like cherry, and another one is like more of like an oaky, like peaty kind of flavor. So I'm going to try those. I'm going to buy a couple of cheap bottles of whiskey and see if I'll age them. Right. So there you go. So today, today we're talking about habits, talking about performance, talking about just building routines. And I know for anybody that doesn't know Curtis runs an awesome salon. He's got teams. He's got lots of complexity in their business, him and his wife, Chantel. So maybe talk about some of the systems and the habits and this and the routines that you guys have built to try and keep yourself sane. I'll let you kick off while I just drink this whiskey.
All right. Especially considering the salon's actually only been open for almost 4 years now, coming April. So we're learning a lot. I mean, systems and, developing our own. Chantel had worked in the industry for about 12 years before we started the salon, and so far now around 15, 16 years. So she knows about hair salons, how they work, how to be a stylist, how to do great work. But when it comes to, running a business and now adding on a whole another layer of pressure with regards to bookkeeping and all the other networking that we do and
you getting an echo?
No, that's I don't know, wasn't here, but anyways, we it adds just such a layer of complexity on it that if it's not managed properly, you're right, you just keep spinning your wheels. And so the point I was trying to make there is that we may have the systems in place how to run an amazing salon with operationally being able to cut lots of hair and do it well and provide good customer service, but everything else that supports that actual base business is something that we've had to really learn. And I guess as a challenge to everybody else out there, I imagine you're probably going through similar things where you might know and be really passionate about your main concentration of focus. You know how to attract customers from your target market. You know how to market towards them. You know how, you've got all these systems in place, but then all the other things that you're not really that interested in, like bookkeeping, reporting for your incorporation, maybe some of the networking aspects. There's definitely lots of stuff that is in the background that'll make you feel like you're chasing your tail and really be like that 80-20 rule where, the 20% of the stuff outside of work that you weren't really considering starts taking up 80% of your time.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I think, for anybody, and I was just encouraging people, if you have things that you use, habits, systems, processes, post them in the comments here as well, so we can maybe answer some of those questions. I think what I see often is you're totally right, is that the 80-20 rule is super, super important, that Pareto principle, where we just, and you guys can throw your comments or join in. And how many of you guys feel like sometimes like it just gets, like life just gets busy and it's like you end the day. It's almost, if you've ever driven somewhere and you don't remember how you got there, I think often our days feel like that. We end the day and we're like, okay, that was a busy day. But what actually happened? What did we do to kind of like systemize things, right? Every day's crazy. Big Sky VA. That's it. Nicole's joined us as well. Cool. So anybody wants to join in, click join the seat. But that's what I see often happening. And so one of the, I mention this all the time, a wonderful book is called The Power of Habit. Nicole, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm wonderful. I'm wonderful.
Hi, Nicole.
I miss you.
I know.
Miss you.
So long.
Yeah. So we and Dewan is there. Dewan, jump in, baby. So like I like it. I like the crew. The Power of Habit is a wonderful book, Charles Duhigg. And the one big takeaway for me with that, and I use it all the time. And for anybody that doesn't know, I do like sales coaching and training, and I look at building conversations, building roadmaps. I think anything that you do, you can create a system around. You can make your business process dependent, not people dependent. And so when you look at the way that habits are formed and the way they're in our brain, there's a part that's called the basal ganglia. And once you start building the right routines, once you start building the consistent things, what they look for is it starts with a cue or a trigger, the routine you build, and then the reward that you get. So we're always looking for what's happening, what do I do, and then what's the result. And so when we're constantly chasing our tail, the thing that I've learned over the years is that when I'm constantly chasing my tail, my mental activity is always like spiking because we're always jumping around doing a bunch of shit. When we start to build routines, the activity that spikes is when we recognize something, and then we go into a routine, then we get the reward. So we actually decrease our mental energy and the mental activity like in our brain when they scan it by building systems and routines, so that when we talk about, we've done a couple sessions on being present, being engaged, being authentic, being genuine, by building routines, especially in your dialogue and your business, then you can be much more present with other people because you know the kinds of things that you need to do. So when Curtis is telling me something, I'm already identifying the stuff that's going to happen, but I'm not trying to fill my brain with all these ideas. I know what the next step's going to look like if I'm in a sales call. So that's been a really big thing, especially for me on sales, especially for the way that we build stuff, is to just build the system and then get comfortable being normal with that system, right? And we got people joining first day. All right, formulas in place. I love these comments. Mel's saying, plan your day, but allow for flexibility. Absolutely. Don't beat yourself up if you don't do all the tasks. Stay focused. That's a big one, right? Is that guilt, that blame, that shame, is we kind of overburden ourselves with all the stuff we need to do. And man, like it's like you got to give yourself that flexibility. Like, it's okay if you don't do it, right? So Nicole, my dear, she's left. But Nicole is going to jump back in. She's going to tell us a bit about what she's doing in her business.
Sorry,
Hey,
I was going to get my earphones so you could hear me better.
Okay, cool. I'll let you talk in a sec then. I'll go back to Curtis. Curtis, what about in your sort of daily habits, some of the things, I mean, you're a big on meditation and sort of creating that balance. And I believe, I mean, like I said, I worked with Shigenori for a while on the spirituality, especially in like complex business ideas. How do you add habits and spirituality and meditation and stuff into your business so that you still have time for you, but still get shit done, right?
It's really tough, and it's one of those things that I talk to lots of entrepreneurs to try to encourage them to be able to take those steps for themselves, to be able to be in a balanced situation so that they can really be present and really be focused on being able to, accomplish their goals. I guess if I was to give anybody a practical way of, and maybe give them an opportunity that would really change their life, would be not, first off, when you're going to bed, don't think about work and all the things and everything else that's coming up and all the opportunities that you'd love to explore. Yeah. Tell yourself that as soon as a really good idea comes in your mind, say, it doesn't matter. No. I don't care. It doesn't matter. And then just slowly, even though it sounds like the opposite usually, because you'd want to not give yourself that intention that those kind of really good ideas don't matter. It's just that you have to really be honest with yourself that you have to have a proper balance and boundaries between your professional and business life and your personal life of being able to actually, be there for yourself. And that's a gift. That's not being lazy. That's not being, not, well motivated, you really do need to have that time. And then being able to give that yourself to at least 6 to 8 hours of, what most people say dreaming or unconscious, but really, look at that time as being a window into the opportunity for your soul to communicate with you and have that relationship that you may not be able to experience throughout the other, 16 hours of the day that you're worried about or you're thinking about business and you're being proactive and creating and doing these systems and getting shit done. And so just a really practical way and just to give yourself that time and not feel hard on yourself for not always constantly thinking about business and doing business and everything else. So just something I learned.
Olga, welcome. Hey, Olga. Can you hear us? Well, I think Olga's on dial-up. Hey, send me an AOL email. Nicole, one of the I remember a while back we talked about some stuff where you were like, you have so much to do, but how do you still focus on you and your business and your family and your guy and all that stuff? Maybe talk about your business for a second. Talk about some of the habits that you're building. And Olga, why are you so choppy? Sandman Hotel Wi-Fi. The best. So you can just be like part of the scene right now. Nicole, you go ahead until Olga gets a connection.
Well, can you hear me okay?
You sound wonderful.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to quickly add something onto what Curtis said about, giving yourself that time at night to actually sleep and rest. Creative people usually have their best ideas at night, right? And it's really hard at that point to actually put your ideas aside and say, okay, well, I need that time. And what I found for me anyways, because I would lose sleep thinking I'm going to forget, is I always keep a notepad by my bed so I can write those ideas down and then I can actually let my brain rest without worrying that I'm going to forget these great ideas or that I need to do something. So, putting those mechanisms in place that will allow you to, be effective, but still take care of yourself is so important. And so I started my business a couple years ago now, and I spent some time with Joe because I was like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. Maybe I should get a job. And
that kills me inside.
And it's kind of funny looking back because it's like, why would I ever want to do that? But it's because it's hard. And it takes so much work and so much time and so much energy to actually, do the things you want to do, feel like you're making progress, not feel like you're spinning your wheels, and feeling like you're really adding value and doing a great job at what you're doing.
Yeah.
So a big part of that is, how do you actually maintain this lifestyle you want and all the freedom you're supposed to have as a business owner and all of these great things? Well, putting things into perspective really helps as far as your time goes, because you have to look at, am I working weekends? Do I have networking things? How much time do I actually have to spend in a week doing the work versus finding the work versus everything else? And a big part of determining what my process is needed to be, and I'm still working on it. It's always evolving, of course, right, as your business grows. But, you really need to map out what your days are and put into that process of my Monday, this is what it is. Yeah. And when I'm on Sunday, I can feel really good about, okay, this is how my week is going to look. This is how much time I have dedicated. No, I don't have time for a meeting with you this week or next week, but I would love to meet with you the week after. And this is the times that I have available. Yeah. And it's really hard at first to say that because it's like, oh yeah, I need to meet you for sure. I don't want to let this opportunity slip. But, in these 11 episodes, we've talked about, if people want to work with you, then waiting a week is not going to be a big deal, and they're totally going to understand.
Yeah.
Does that answer the question? I don't know if I digressed.
No, it's good. And your audio and your video aren't like not in sync, so I don't know if when you laugh, you're like.
it's like Bruce Lee. It's like watching a really good kung fu movie.
Kill my brother. Right? It's great. No, you're totally right. One of the big things, I mean, that you're saying there is just the ability to say no and be able to respect your calendar. I know we did a big, one of my clients, we did a big training session yesterday about respecting your calendar, respecting your time, not to say no to be a dick about it, right? Like not to say I'm too important, because I see some people use it like that. But when we say respect our calendar, you say, okay, yeah, absolutely. Here's what I do on these days. Here's the time I have free. And you structure your business around what you will and won't do. One of the things that we talked about a lot is creating those like non-negotiables in your space, in your business about, if you really want to make sure, like for Curtis, he does meditation. For me, it's drinking. Nicole is health. So everybody's got these non-negotiables, but you have to kind of plan for that. You can't, the things that are important in your life, you can't just like, you have to schedule those in. You have to plan those in. You can't just allow those to be like second fiddle. So relationships are important to me, family, all those things are really important. But if those become like, when I'll get to those, when I get to those, you never end up getting to them. And so we that's what we talk a lot about, is like making sure that everything in your life has a plan, not overly planned like we talked about earlier, but just like Curtis is saying, honor your time, respect that calendar, and let other people respect your time and calendar as well. Be totally cool to say no to people. That doesn't work for me this week. How about next week or the week after? Actually, I'm not going to be able to get to it. And people will do that because I think as a society, we're always instant gratification. So because I just thought of this idea right now, I'm going to tell everybody, hey, let's solve this right now. And then everybody gets caught in that like reinforcing loop of let's just get busy for the sake of being busy. Right. And like for that kind of stuff, it's really tough to get caught in that. I had one thing I was going to say. Oh, one thing I always talk to people is the multitasking. I think I mentioned this before. All the studies around multitasking, there's American Psychological Association, I think that's what it was. They wrote that when you multitask, you can lose up to 40% of productivity because of having to switch back and forth between different things. So if you're constantly saying yes or doing anything that comes to you throughout the day, you're actually half as productive as if you batch things in the right order, right? So what happens in our brains is we have these like, there's two parts. There's the rule activation, where we like if I'm talking to Curtis right now and then I have to go write an email, I have to change the rules for how I do those things. And then we also switch goals. So I have a different goal talking to Curtis versus a different goal for writing an email. So if I allow this monster here to interrupt me on what I'm doing, then shame on me. Right. And I said shame on you last time to somebody, but shame on us for allowing the technology and things to control our time. When we say, okay, this time, especially 90 minutes, a couple hours focused on one thing, how many times can you just absolutely crank stuff out if you just sit down and do it for a couple hours? It's mental, right? And just how many times do we do things for more than 20 minutes at a time before like the next shiny thing buzzes at us? We're like, oh, look at that. I'm going to go watch this video, right?
Well, also, if you're not rushing all the time and trying to think of all these things in your head and trying to get from one place to another, when you actually do have those conversations and you are meeting with people, you're actually more focused and prepared, and they go so much better.
Yeah. Oh, I can't.
Am I still weird?
I thought you were still talking, and then the audio was done. Nicole, I'm going to kick you out for a sec, reload and see if this fixes it.
Okay.
Maybe you can meet Olga at the Sandman Hotel.
Yeah.
So maybe they're next. Maybe she's next door at the Sandman Hotel.
Like, so yeah. I mean, so those are a couple things. As we're talking about this, just to kind of recap, is we're talking about habits, right? And habits means any kind of systems, processes, tools, things that you do so that will allow you to do stuff consistently. Oh, I like somebody's just right. So Mel, I love just guys throw comments and stuff in here. I feed the mind every day, new skill, read audio, build University of Knowledge, self-development, body strength challenge, role model, find someone who inspires you. So all this kind of stuff, authentic voice. So how, I'm going to throw you on the spot there, Mel. How are you actually building that into habits? Because these are all things you want to get done. How do you systemize that? How do you make sure that stuff happens each time? Emotions. Okay. So that's my question to you. Here's a perfect example as the most simple example of building process and habits. I do a lot of traveling and I do a lot of speaking, and sometimes I have to go and bring my laptop with me to events. And so only twice in the last few years has this happened where I show up and I was missing my charger cable. Right. And so for me, doing a one-day workshop where everything's on my computer and I forgot my charging cable and it's a newer laptop, so it's not a universal charger, is like, oh my God, especially with a new client, a couple hundred people in a room, and they're looking, and I'm like, oh man, we're starting in like half an hour and I don't have my charger cable. That feels really bad, right? That's a lot of stress that I don't like. So when things happen like that, I go, okay, hold on. I forgot it because of a couple things. I rushed. I didn't have a system. I didn't have a plan. I wasn't organized. It wasn't a fault. I'm not like a bad person. This is my girlfriend and I talk about this all the time, where it's like, oh, I'm such an idiot. It's like, am I really an idiot, or did I just not have a system? Pretty smart, but I'm not stupid. You know what I mean? Right. So that self-defeating language doesn't help anybody. It doesn't serve anybody. So what I decided, I was like, okay, when I pack my laptop, all I got to do is just make a system for that. So now I always want my laptop, my mouse, and my charging cable. So every time I load my laptop bag, I count 1, 2, 3. That's the habit that I built. And now I never forget my charging cable. Because if I load my laptop and I haven't counted 1, 2, 3, that's the cue for me to double check. Right. But if I leave, and the negative reward is to go into a presentation and not have my stuff. So that was strong enough for me to build a really basic habit, and I never forget stuff. And so we do that often with, did you get the info email at the seminar in order to carry on? What does that mean? Stress situation. Did you get the info email at the seminar? No, I just showed up, and we were like starting in half an hour. This is the story in Service River. The topic here, it just came in as the title here, how habits can change, help you with time management, help you manage time, mindset, performance. I was just sharing. So what happened was I showed up and I didn't have my charger, and I had to send somebody to go get it. And so they got it. We were able to solve it. My laptop has like a 3 hours of charging. So I had some time, but I couldn't leave. But that feeling of, oh my God, this is not something I want happening right now, because part of my routine of getting prepared to speak is all about mindset and intention. And all of a sudden now that was stealing some of my energy, which I didn't want to take. And so now every time I pack my bag, I have the 1, 2, 3 system, and I never forget it. And the same thing, I mean, I'm going to throw my girlfriend under the bus. She's not on here yet, right? So good. So she always forgets her phone. I'm like, build a system, build a habit, put it in the same place, have something, you don't need a phone tracker. You need to know where you're putting things. And if you're always moving things around, of course you're going to forget it. And that just takes up way too much mental energy, right? So anything that you'd have to do more than once, build a system, build a habit, so you can focus on the stuff that matters, which is presence and energy and all that stuff that really helps you with your relationships. Yeah. Tick sheet, what you need. I got it. Cool. So Curtis, how about that? What do you got around those ideas?
Yeah, well, we're always building habits anyways, right? So might as well make those systems and duplicate them. I love that, the reward, having it so that, you have systems in order for reward. And I'm just thinking through like good habits that we do. One thing that I'll mention too is that just especially for time and honoring yourself, loving yourself, giving you that as a reward or a habit, constantly putting that on your list, because I think that that's the one thing people will leave out. Generally is that they'll just say, well, I don't really have time for me today, so tomorrow. We'll do it tomorrow, or I'll put this off. And I talked to, I'll do a little plug here for a local business that's here in Victoria.
Hold on, you're getting a shout out for your beard. Let's just acknowledge that.
Oh, fantastic beard. You beat Street Robertson.
I don't know who's Sir. Is it Sir Robertson? I don't know who that is, but wonderful.
Beat Sir Robertson? Well, he must be really cool.
A bearded wonder like you.
Thank you very much.
Curtis
Service
is very
River.
bearded. Oh, Duck Dynasty. Cy Robertson.
Oh, Cy Robertson. Okay, so Creative Bliss, a girl named Kim Jensen, on Fort Street, does creative workshops. She has vintage furniture, stuff like that. I was talking to her. She had a job where she was taking care of like 30 different people. And then she said, oh, you know what, I'm getting worn out of this. I want to do something for myself. I have a passion for vintage furniture. She opens up a shop. Then all of a sudden she's like, wow, there's so many good opportunities. There's so many ways I can make money, but I love doing like all the books and everything else. And I don't want to give that to somebody else because I really like doing it. But then I realized that I'll be paying somebody to do my books a certain amount. And if I'm doing workshops, I can make 5 times the amount of money, but I feel bad about giving the books over to somebody else because I think that I should be able to handle that.
Okay.
And so we talk about a little bit about it. And she says, well, the 2 things, one thing is the 2 things that she said is that the bookkeeping, and then the other one that was most important to her was the fact that she hadn't been able to take a time to be able to just have a bath.
Have a bath?
Her thing was like she loves having baths instead of showers.
I see what you're saying. I was like, okay, that's a problem, but I get what you're saying. Yeah.
So just take some time. And identifying those little things that are rewards for you to be able to make those habits, to be able to create time. It is a choice. It's absolutely a choice. And anybody that tells you that, you don't have a choice to be able to do the things that you should be able to give yourself as a reward, then now you've created a layer of slavery for yourself that is not helpful, and it's not. And you know what, Joel, if this was something that we had to do every Friday, and it wasn't just some cool shit that we were doing, how many people would be like, oh, I really want to be part of that with you? It's like, no, let's do the cool shit. Let's keep doing cool shit. And, all the things that we have to do, let's make those like I want to do them. And just make time for yourself. Just love yourself. Kindness of self.
Love it. So I use Big Sky VA, Reiki, I think Reiki for tasks and project management. It works well with Google. I know Jesse uses Reiki for some of his stuff too, but I've heard that works really well. And any kind of tools, teamwork is nice. I use a lot with my clients right now. We do a lot of collaborative documents. I use Google Drive for most of our stuff. And what we've been doing is creating really good tools. So I'm going to talk to Nicole in a second here, but there's two things I always look at. There's an activity, and I'll type it in here. This is what I do all the time. Fix. I'm going to type this so you guys have it. This is an activity I do with my business. I do with clients called Fix, Find, and Prevent. And what it is that when you run into scenarios where either, you wish something better would happen, or you get into a scenario where you're like, man, I hate it when that happens, like I just shared with the laptop bag. What you do is I do an activity to Fix, Find, and Prevent. You say, okay, typically what we end up doing is we're constantly putting out fires, right? I think I was at a seminar last week, and the one guy was talking about people pride themselves on being firefighters. But then if you actually showed firefighters how people put out fires, they're like, that's not how we do it, because we follow systems, right? But the whole idea of Fix, Find, and Prevent is to say, when we get into these situations where something happens that we don't like, our natural thing is to respond, is to react emotionally. And so so what we end up doing is we're constantly running around trying to solve this stuff and fix it on the fly. If you find that's happening, you got to step back and say, I don't like when I have to do those things. So then the next level is we start to find the cause of that. We start to create like a response. And that's where people start to go, well, here's our policy, or this is how it is. Or they say, what do you think about that? We have these canned responses. And then that's where there's a lot of mental energy that gets taken up. Whereas prevention is thinking about change management, thinking about leadership, and saying, how can I make this stuff not happen in the future? So that's why, like I said, we do a lot of stuff with Google Drive to say, often we get in these, if I have to do something more than once, I should build a system for it. I should never have to type up the same thing. That's why autoresponders are great. I should never have to send emails to people if I can just have them one link and they can go to the thing and we can update it in different ways. As long as people now feel good about that, you can start to create a ton of space in your business and your processes by saying, what's happening? What's the challenge? And how can I prevent that from happening? If we constantly are reacting to things, then we're just constantly going to spend all of our time chasing, right? But when we can prevent it from happening, often we never have to explain ourselves again because we've talked about it before. So we do that stuff on psychological priming. You're just trying to prime your clients, prime your staff, prime your teams, prime your relationships to say, when this happens, let's do this. So we prevent that shit from happening in the future. So I wanted to share that with you guys. Mm-hmm. Nicole, what about you, baby? Let's see if it's synced now.
Hello? testing.
Close.
It's not, is it?
It's fine. It's fine.
I don't know why my bars.
I'm just going to imagine we're in like a really good karate movie, right? Your kung fu is strong.
Right?
Here you go.
I think as far as the tools that people use, there are so many right now that are available online, and there are so many free ones that it's really hard for people or businesses to say, to make excuses around that, about bad communication or not getting things done or having issues that are constantly arising. It's just in an unreal world with so much technology and so many people sharing. It's like if you put on Facebook, hey, does anybody know a good system for this? You're going to have 100 responses. So like we really are at a day and age where we can rule our own time if we choose to.
Yeah. Dog foods or not, yo. I'm just responding to some comments. We got lots of comments here, so I'm trying to keep up with the comments and I'm listening to you. But yeah, absolutely. It is making sure, for sure. And then somebody asked a question, favorite sales book. I answered that. Nicole, remember we talked a while back, and you were one of the challenges that you'd mentioned was around, I'm so busy and I don't have time to, you know, focus on my relationships, but you made a mental switch to say, I'm going to make sure I focus on that. I spend more time on that, because if I don't take care of if I don't take care of me, nobody will. Right. We kind of talked about that. Maybe add a couple points on that.
Well, it all comes down to, like you say, it's mindset. It's, you have to choose, this is how it's going to be, and this is how I'm going to respond, and this is how I'm going to act. Yeah. And you have to hold yourself accountable. And basically that's all it comes down to is, I said, okay, this is what needs to change because it's not working for me. And these are the things that I'm going to need to do to make these changes. And then as soon as I would feel like I wasn't doing that, then I'm not staying true to myself either. And you don't feel good about yourself. And it's like, if you don't feel good about yourself or your calendar or what you're doing, you're not going to be performing well, and it's going to be transparent. Your clients will see it, your prospects will see it, and then before you know it, you're just in this spiraling circle of defeat. So it's really about your mindset and staying true to you and what you need to be successful in your own eyes. And it's not only business that makes you successful, right? It's everything around you. It's that I'm able to, dedicate the time I need to helping, my boyfriend, or to, keeping fit and taking care of my body and eating properly. And, all of those things make me who I am, and who I am is what people want to deal with. That's right.
Yeah. And you know what? And you're one of the things. Oh, my man, Dewan, what is going on, Dewan? He's coming on in a second here. One of the things, here's something that I always, I remember, I think often we talk about habits and systems, and I think somebody mentioned earlier is the whole idea of like, now we overschedule ourselves. We think, well, I'm going to build habits, I'll build systems, I'll build calendar. And then we just all of a sudden like now burden ourselves with all this stuff. And it's like this, Dewan, what's going on, homeboy?
Hey, brother. I got a bit of a flu, but I said I was going to be on, so here I am.
Don't spread it through here. Nobody wants a virus on their computer, right? I'm gonna come to you in 1 second. I was just gonna finish this thought. One of the things I remember, one of my buddies a while back, he was feeling like really stressed out because he just like had all this stuff to do, and like everywhere we go, people just got stuff to do. And so I tried to show him how to use tools and build systems, and he was just feeling overwhelmed. And if anybody wants to comment on the side, anybody feel overwhelmed, put your hand up, right? But the whole thing, I said, okay, let's just unpack this and make it really simple, right? Like if we go back to the beginning of time, our job used to be just get up and don't die, right? And if you did that was good. That was a successful day. And if you have people, you got to feed the people, and that was it. Since then, it's just so complicated. There's just so much shit to do. And for like, I know Dewan does internet marketing, online stuff, funnels and this, and it's like X's and ones and zeros. And it's like so much shit every day. And you got to manage people. And then you take this stuff on. And when I talk to entrepreneurs and they got problems, and I'm like, you don't like these problems, get a job, right? And then they go, well, I don't want to get a job. I'm like, okay, that's where we're going to start from. You created this problem. You created this thing. For me, when I'm stressed about my business, I go, I made this choice. Or I can go get a job and I won't have half the problems I have. And so I'm getting some feedback from somebody there. Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, man, like that's Doing Better blog. Yeah, cool, man. So that's one of the things I always say is just get up, don't die. And you've already pretty much solved most of the problems. And the rest of it's just this problems that you create. Right. If you think like that, and all these people that struggle with stuff every day, it just makes it so much easier. Then you build the systems and habits. You don't like it, don't do it. Like Curtis was saying, we don't have to do this thing. We just said we want to do this, and we started to create systems and habits. Like I bought a plugin for my website that allows this to now post, bring the comments in, and do all the stuff that I don't necessarily want to do, so that we can just be in the moment here and have fun doing this, so we don't have to sweat all the other stuff, because I didn't want to create another job for myself. I wanted to just do fun shit and talk about business and drink whiskey. That was it, right? So I'm gonna kick it back to Dewan, and then I'm gonna look at some of these questions here. Dewan, I mean, you're a systems dude, man. You live and eat and breathe systems. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, but actually, it's funny. I mean, I struggle with mile a minute entrepreneur syndrome, if you want to call that, with your brain. And funny enough, I find the writing for me is good, but Evernote, I'm not sure if you guys have mentioned it on the call today, but
I love Evernote.
Man, Evernote is it's for somebody that has like a zillion things going on. It's just amazing to be able to brain dump it and then just categorize it on the fly and tag it. So And it's free. I mean, obviously there's premium options for it, but if you guys haven't tried Evernote out, by all means, man, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm feeling a bit under the weather. Flu kicked my butt from Wednesday.
We'll talk to you then. How about that? I think it was you. Hey, what's up?
Well, we were scared of Dewan coming on there anyways, giving it a virus.
Yeah, I think you did. You give it a virus, Dewan. And I don't know. You gave it a virus.
I'm taking the internet over, man. That's great. This is my whole plan.
That's why you're not supposed to be here. I was just like, I was talking, and and I don't know what happened. So I don't know what happened with the recording because I had to restart the Blab, and so we might have lost all that gold. So
it still says recording.
No, because I just started again. Scott, homeboy, what's happening with you? Talk to us about what you're working on. You caught us. Are you friends with Dewan? Is that how we're connected? Is that what's going on?
I don't know if I'd say friends. I'd say more like fan of Dewan.
Me too. We're all fans of Dewan.
Thank you, brother. I would say we're friends.
No, I saw, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 months ago, something like that. I saw one of Dewan's videos about publishing, and he was just driving to go and pick up his taxes with his dogs, and I was like, cool, this dude's wanting to publish, and he's got his dog in the car with him. I'm all about that. Got 2 of them in the background, and I started watching D1 and started watching Jason and all kinds of other stuff on the internet, and now I got my first book that's out there and published, and it's making tons of money. Just kidding, but it's been a super fun process, and now I'm sitting here writing my next one, and honestly just having fun hanging out. Like you guys are saying, it's Friday, having a cider. I'm celiac, so I can't have a beer or whiskey or anything, so I did the next closest thing. But I don't know. I'm just here to hang out, really.
Cool. You know what's funny is I'll touch on that because this is where we, Gary Vaynerchuk, he talks about all this stuff. People say, well, I've been doing my business for the last 6 months or 8 months and it's just not working. Should it be working by now? And the whole concept there, like, I like that you have this like loose attachment to the results, which is like, I did a book, it's making maybe $1, $0, but you enjoyed the process. And that's what's most important, man. Like when we started this thing was we just say, hey, let's have some fun. Let's do it. We never know what's going to happen. But I get a lot of people that come to me and say, what's the plan with Whiskey Friday? What are you guys going to do with it? I'm like, I don't know. The plan is on Fridays, I have whiskey and we drink and we talk about stuff. Just like if I was going to go to a pub and people are like, oh, and it's like, it's weird for people to think, well, you could just like do something and like not have a plan. I'm like, but that's part of my plan is to have this not consume us, right? When Curtis and I talk about this, we're like, what do we want to talk about? We're actually, one of the things we're going to be doing with Blab is we're both the board members for the Young Entrepreneur Society here in Victoria, and we're going to actually incorporate Blab into part of what we do for our members, which we'll do a live streaming like this where our members can come on and ask the board specific business questions. We'll then record it. We'll do this. We'll load it as content and use it as a tool to help people. So part of Whiskey Friday is helping us learn how the tool works, how these things work, how everything's connected, get into this mode of how do we use this format and how do we make the most of this to help other people. And so if you're writing a book, you're doing your internet marketing, Curtis has a salon, I think ultimately we got to build the systems and processes to serve the people around us, right?
Yeah, completely. That's a great way of looking at it too. I mean, like you said, you're not really attached to the outcome of this Blab, but by that, you're kind of learning on how it actually works.
Yeah. And by not, the funny thing is when you lose the attachment, I know Nicole and I've talked about this a bunch of times, when we lose attachment to results, lose attachment to money, lose attachments to anything that we want extrinsically to validate us, and we just attach ourselves to this intrinsic reward of like, let's have some fun, enjoy our lives, and other people gravitate towards that. If we go back to how people are so stressed out and busy, if they're like, why? How come you're having fun? I just like, when I talk about Blab, I have corporate clients that are like, we need more fun in our business. Can you come help us with that? So I don't have to do a sales pitch. They're like, it just sounds like you're doing stuff that we're not doing. That sounds way more fun than the shit that we have to do. I'm like, because it is, right? They're like, how is your business drinking and talking to people? I'm like, that's it.
Because I made it so.
That's the business. Because I was like, I have an idea. Let's do that. And they're like, what's the plan? I'm like, drinking. Drinking is the plan. Talking to Curtis, talking to Dewan, talking to Scott. That's the plan, man.
Hey, Joe, could we pay you to come and have some fun with us and show us how to do it, because we're sucking at it.
That's it. Well, what's funny? I told Curtis the other day, I did a corporate client out of Calgary, and I went down there, and it was, when you just, like, I've done so many sales workshops, and you get going, And it's like 8 a.m. and everybody's just looking at you like, who's this douchebag going to tell us about sales? And I know what it's because I've been in the audience and I'm saying a bunch of shit. And then then I was like, you know what? The easiest way to break the tension, like, how many of you guys have heard of Blab? They're like, no. And I was like, we do this show called Whiskey Friday where we drink whiskey and talk business. And to a person, they're like, that sounds awesome. And instantly cut all the tension from the room. And everybody's like, this guy seems like a fun guy to hang out with. And once we have that, everything else is easy, right? And so that's when we talk about what's the purpose of Blab. Blab is a platform for us to just be normal people doing normal shit. That's it. So, I mean, that's the plan, right?
So, well, I'm going to take off and let Nicole back on, but I figured I would say hi, and I'm going to be listening in. But yeah, I'm feeling like a bag of you-know-what. So, yeah, cheers, guys. And,
stop breaking my computer.
Yeah. Okay, enjoy.
Peace out, buddy. And I'm gonna give a shout out to I think Bronwyn there. Absolutely, about authentic conversations, genuine opportunities. When people, I mean, when we build training, we always talk about the 5 buying decisions. The first buying decision anybody makes is they buy you. They buy you as a person. Then they decide about your company, your product, and your price. And if they believe that you're genuine and authentic, and you're somebody that they'd want to spend time with, it's so much easier to sell anything to anybody, right? So that's kind of what we're talking about. And I don't know if you could. Curtis just got kicked out again, but he's back on. But maybe, hey, Scott, what is it that tell us about your book and what you're doing and what you're launching and how you sort of built this process and why the heck are you writing books?
The current one or the one that I've got coming up now?
You tell whatever you want, man. We're drinking.
And just I'll go on that, but really quickly, I love that idea. Because how many times have you been sitting in a bar or at your house having a party and you were like, I wish we had a fucking camera going. Because if we would have been recording this conversation, it would have been awesome.
Yeah.
But
that's what this is.
The last book that I wrote was on dogs because I just love dogs. I have for years. I almost bred them. Yeah. First dog I got was with that intention. But I put that book out and I don't know. I watched a video with D1 and I watched a video with Dale Roberts, and they started talking about the long term of being able to actually, be passionate with your business and not just publishing stuff because ooh, it's shiny and that niche is making a whole lot of money. And that's not why I did the whole dog thing, but it was I can only write so many damn books about dogs. Unless you start doing things with training, which you really shouldn't be doing unless you've got years and years of experience doing it. Yeah. You really shouldn't be. And so then I started thinking about, I need to do something that I know what the hell's going on, and that's celiac disease, the gluten-free deal. And a lot of people out there, I've got lots of gluten-free friends, and every single one of them is a bitcher and a complainer about, I can't eat anywhere, I can't have this, I can't have that. And then it's funny because they can't eat all the fatty stuff like donuts and cake and all this stuff, but they all end up just, gaining tons of weight because they just use it as an excuse to eat other crappy stuff. I'm no, guys, you don't need to do that. And so I'm going to come out with a line of gluten-free books, and what I'm writing right now is the top 10, you could call it fit meals that are just super tasty. The meals that you're like, the ones that you would eat and go, this is gluten-free, because everybody just associates gluten-free with, that probably tastes like dirt, right? Sandpaper in your mouth type stuff. So that's what I want to do. I just want to show people that just because you're a celiac and just because you have a forced modified diet doesn't mean you can't go out. You can't have a drink with people. You can't go out to dinner. You can't do all these kinds of things that people just go, no, I'm just going to hunker down in my house. And
go in your cave, man. You can't eat it. You can't drink it. Get out of here. Go in your cave. Don't talk to us. And I love that Nicole is trying to book hair appointments on Whiskey Friday Blab. That's awesome. No, you're just not where you do it, Nicole, pal.
I didn't even see that. I need to book an appointment. Yeah, excellent.
Yeah, no, not here. No, I'm going to send that guy back in to hit on you, Nicole, from our first Blab. That was awesome. But you know what you're talking about. So my girlfriend is she went vegetarian. I'm always going to try and bring it back to the topic here, which is about habits. Managing time, mindset, performance is there's things that we wanted, like she's vegetarian and she started to think about like vegan and stuff. And I'm typical guy, which is like, oh yeah, look at hippie and you're doing all this weird stuff. But she's like, I want to try a different kind of like food, health style. And so the biggest thing, I love recipes. So we bought recipes for vegan and vegetarian and bought all these different things and just tried them. And you build the right systems and you can start to create things that have tons of flavor. And the problem is that people default to bacon and meat because they just naturally have like tons of flavor when you fry them up. But when you start to create really good food with all these other products, you can actually make things really, really tasty, right? So
where are you from, Scott?
I am from Utah, born and raised, and no, I don't have multiple wives. I took a trip out to Alaska for 3 years, and I can't tell you how many times I got that question. It's hilarious.
I love it. I love it.
Is it just not a big thing there to have gluten-free restaurants? Joe and I are from Victoria and British Columbia, is Vancouver Island, just north of Seattle. And there's a ton of gluten-free restaurants, cookbooks, companies, like even late night pizza after the bar. You can
everything is awesome here.
It's ridiculous. Like it's not even it's not even much of a stress anymore. Like I sooner or later, like it's just going to be like, I don't know, you have to have the gluten shaker where you just add your own gluten if you want it.
Yeah. There was something I saw the other day about a vegan butcher shop where it was all like they had all these like cool cuts of like non-meat in a butcher shop. Man, it was cool, really, really cool. Yeah,
is that the meatless meat and the cheeseless cheese?
So good. Yeah, we've got a bunch of stuff like that. So let's bring it back to habits, performance, mindset, really how we're systemizing things, because people that are listening in, they want to hear about vegetarians and vegans and stuff like that. That's great. But we want to talk about how we're actually structuring this in our business, in our process, so that we can create more freedom, time-wise, as well as mental freedom, right? Because now everybody's putting recipes and stuff. We're not talking about food. We're talking about habits. So what are some things that we're doing? Yeah, you killed me here. Like, all right, let's write books on dogs. You start talking dogs and vegan, and you can hijack any blab. So start talking about systems and processes, things that create mental and time freedom for you guys. How about Curtis? What about you?
Or talking about recipes for vegan.
I'm losing my mind here. This blab is off the rails. This is not being. I'm not going to record this.
You know what? What I love is that you did put it in 3 different categories: time, mindset, and performance, and they are all linked. Absolutely. The biggest complaint that I ever hear from businesses and business people, business owners especially, is that they have no time. Mm-hmm. Like way too busy. Well, you know what? The truth is that the root word of business is busyness. Mm-hmm. And if you are saying that you're busy, that just means that you're a successful entrepreneur. So if that's the case, if you're a successful entrepreneur by being busy, that's not, I'm not feeling sorry for you. I'm excited for you, that you're successful. So now what? How do you create that time? And it is up to you. So how do you create time? Well, this is what we've already been talking about throughout this whole way. You create time by creating systems. You create time by deciding to create opportunities for balance in your life, to be able to have good boundaries with regards to how you view the business and yourself. And then the other is duplication, being able to create opportunities for people to duplicate your systems and empower you to give you boundaries and time to be able to keep on doing what you do best. So you bring people onto your team that are professionals and that are contractors that actually can create those systems. If you don't have time to create systems, you just are always duplicating your efforts and what it is. You stick with your passion, be really cool with your boundaries, and then other people will be like, this guy's got his shit together. He's doing cool shit. Let's just keep following on this train. And then what happens? Performance. So now busyness is an exciting opportunity to be successful with your time, rather than thinking of it as busy being like, oh, you should feel sorry for me because I'm doing a lot extra than what I would be doing if I was just in the job.
Totally.
So I don't know if that resonates with anybody. I hope it does, because that's the trick for me.
Yeah. And there's Dewan's got a good question here about structuring time. And the big thing I always look at is there's a difference between being efficient and there's a difference between being effective, right? And so one of the I remember, I don't know if you guys know who Ty Lopez is. He's all over the internet, the guy with the Lamborghini. Right?
I did in your backyard.
Yeah, he's the best, man. I get 5 Lamborghinis. And somebody made a mix up of that. Anyways, Ty's, I know Ty. He's a wonderful guy, and we did a session a while back on like mindset and performance. And one of the best piece of advice he ever gave us was start to map out. Like if you look at your day, start to track your tasks and rate them as either routine or progress. Right. And you start to see very quickly in your day, what are things that you're just doing to maintain. So maintenance tasks versus progress tasks. And if your ratio is more maintenance than progress, your progress is going to be slow. And so when Curtis talks about like mindset or like meditation or balance or people that are working out or eating healthy, anything that's moving you towards something is going to be a progress task. So if you want to read personal development, you put that into your schedule. But if you catch yourself just doing a bunch of stuff every day of just stuff that you're just cleaning up or it's trying to stay alive, those are all maintenance tasks. So if you can get your ratio at least 2-to-1 maintenance versus progress versus maintenance, you're in a much more progressive state in your business and in your time. And that was a great tip because I start looking at stuff I'm doing. And you don't have to, it's not about judgment, but you look at your day and say, you know what happened today? Was it progress or was it maintenance? And if most of the stuff you're doing is to maintain, you got to take a step back and say, why am I doing all this stuff? Could somebody else do this? Or should I just take this shit off my plate? Right. So that's one thing. And then the other part is that, what Dewan was asking about is how to structure your days. I made a link here on the Productivityist, a guy named Mike Vardy. He and I spoke at a conference last week together, and he's really, really good on productivity. And he's on a bunch of blabs and stuff too, so check him out for sure. But one thing he talks a lot about, and I believe, is theming your days or theming your weeks. So saying, like for me, Friday is really a Whiskey Friday day. So I keep most of my meetings in the morning quite loose, right? They're fun. They're much more relaxed. It's kind of a fun day. Thursday's usually a creative day where I spend time creating. Monday's very much an administrative type day where I spend so that's why we eliminate a lot of the multitasking. So we create a day or at least a half a day around one specific theme, so you stay in that right mode as long as possible, so you don't have to jump between tasks. If you get into emails, pick a time or at least 2 times in the day where that's dedicated to emails. Because one of the things we do, there's a lot of studies that are done, is the first thing we do in the morning is do what? We check our phones, we check our email. That's the worst thing we can do. The first thing we should do in the morning is spend time on ourselves, which is, so for me, a lot of times, I got a little dog, Roxy, we go and lay on the couch and we read for at least half an hour. That's non-negotiable. I don't check my phone. And it's so hard to not do that because I want to be like, what's happening in Facebook? What's happening in my email? Did a bunch of stuff happen overnight? No. Hang out with the dog, read a book, set your mindset, and then make that time yours. Control your calendar. So those are my things. Dewan, I don't know if that helps. Put your comments in there if you're like, I'm out of my mind or that was helpful. Scott, what about you, Holmes?
I couldn't agree more. A year ago, I weighed 60 pounds more than I do right now. And the only reason, period, that it went away was because of systems and habits. And it was, sad times.
But it's here, so that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, systems and habits. You talk vegan, I talk whiskey. Go ahead.
They both work. They're just as good for you, right? Systems and habits. And it was, for me, it was doing 2 different things. And then it was like, I couldn't not be losing weight and getting stronger and all that kind of stuff. And it was being accountable and actually tracking what the crap it was that you're eating. So, saying that you're, in this example, saying I'm going to have this many calories and you're following that, period. Or I'm going to have this to-do list of things that I'm supposed to do today and I'm getting them done, period, in a business comparison. And then going to the gym. And so scheduling times for those things to happen, period. So every day, Monday through Friday, whether it's rain, snow, it's going to take me an hour to get there because there's, a foot and a half of snow outside. I'm going to the gym in the morning before work starts, period. Because like you were saying, start the day with you. If I don't go to the gym in the morning, I don't get into the right mindset and my day sucks, period.
Yeah.
So find that routine, stick to it, even if it sucks in the beginning because you have to go through that adjustment period, because every time that I make a commitment like that, I see results from it.
Totally. And yeah, 100%. And I was just thinking about like one of the things we do in the morning. Here's I'll go personal for a second. My girlfriend and I, we, if you're getting your relationship, you have ebbs and flows, and sometimes you sort of don't feel as connected. We've both been like super crazy busy, and we haven't been feeling as connected for a little while. And then we realized something that we've been doing is we both kind of get up and start our day. We used to, when it was like not as busy, we would spend time in the morning kind of like hanging out. We'd cuddle. We'd just chat for a couple minutes. And that like 2-3 minutes of just like, how's it going? Good morning. Hanging out with the dog. We're like, haha, it's all cute. And then we start our day. That changed like everything. We just went back to that little habit, and it completely transformed connectivity, right? So this is not just about business. It's not about that. It's like find those things where it's like, I'm feeling weird about this, and then trace it back to what you can do to prevent that, what you can do to reconnect with what things matter, and go back to what I said is like, just get up and don't die. Like if you want to get up, if you want to feel good about yourself, you want to live a good life, you got to get up and say, I'm going to take control of the day. But if you get up and let your machines and your calendar start to tell you what to do and when, you become a victim. Even if it's in your own business, you're a victim of a job you created that you probably are unhappy with, and you get burnt out. And I know when I get burnt out, I just lay in bed with my dog. We watch The Office reruns until I like fall asleep. And so if I'm starting to do that, that's a symptom of a bigger issue. I got to go back and say, what are things that are meaningful for me? We go back to cultivating that why and really discussing to ourselves why I'm here. What am I trying to do? And there's people out there, if it's your dog book, if it's your salon, if it's my business, if I don't sort my shit out, I can't help them improve their position. Right. And so that's kind of the mindset that I want to look at for service. Right.
For sure.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind encouraging people to because I know you mentioned it a little bit, Joe, so people don't get confused that, victimization is probably one of the most, it's probably the biggest killer to both mindset and performance. If you are not giving yourself good intention and creating opportunities for yourself, if you believe that your life is subjected to, things happening to you rather than you happening to the world, then you're always going to find someone else, some other way to be victimized. And it's just it's a cycle that you get through, or keep going on. And, so just, to give other people an opportunity just to empower themselves to be able to say, like, you know what, doesn't matter where you are, you can do it. I don't know if you ever thought, Scott, that you'd be a published author, but I know you just sooner or later just decided that was going to happen. Nobody said to you, Scott, can I write a book and just do this for you? It was like, no, like you believed it and it made it happen, right?
Yeah, it was something's got to change, and somebody's got to do it better, and it's going to be me.
Yeah. I love we're getting like a tons of props. It was great. Farouk, where are you, man? I said, come on in. We can't see you.
Well,
Farouk.
Joe, you love nods and notes. Maybe you should be converting that over to nods, notes, and props.
Nods, notes, and props. Yeah, actually, you know what? Nods and notes fit perfectly for this topic. I've said it. I mean, you could just use all my stuff. I just keep saying the same shit over and over, so you don't even have to be here. But one of the things I talk a lot about is when I started to learn about speaking, we talk about service and mindset. I used to always, and anybody else that goes and does speaking or presentations or workshops, if you ever do public speaking, you're always worried about like, how am I dressed? How do I look? Am I saying the right things? We start to be really intrinsic about what's going on. And so Curtis and I, we've worked with, we have he was a spiritual coach for mine, Shigenori. We always give him props. He never shows up, but Shigenori, he was wonderful. He helped me with, my mindset, talking about ego, talking about vulnerability. And, the thing that I learned about speaking was it has nothing to do with me, what I'm saying, how I'm dressed, any of that. It has everything to do with how the audience is reacting. It has everything to do with how we're impacting other people. So I look for two things, nods and notes. If I get people nodding, then something I'm saying is resonating. If they're taking notes, then something I'm saying is important. If they do those two things, it's gold. And then when I do face-to-face meetings, if I'm saying things that are like getting them to realize what's going on. Was this a ghost? Fly Little Birdie, are you a ghost? You need a light. Get a light. What's happening?
What's funny, Kurt?
I think it looks like poor internet signal.
I like it. Okay. You can figure that out. This is creep me out. Audio only. Okay, cool. But what I was saying is I do nods and notes, and then when I talk to people face to face, is I watch for people. I watch for people that drop their shoulders because I know now they've sunk into the idea and they've been like, you know what, that really feels good. So I always do a lot of stuff on body language and the neuroscience. And when people are nodding and people are talking about. Okay, I don't know what this guy's doing. You're done. It's just like No.
Oh.
No, that's okay. So, okay, you want Sin. You got one more shot. You got to fix your audio. I'm going to let him in.
Well, I think just in general, just, resonating with others and manifesting a good intention, and, if you're the one that's looking to actually resonate with people, that's the first step. And, little things, if you're doing really cool shit, it will just actually resonate with people authentically. Otherwise it just won't. I imagine, especially with just writing books like about dogs or gluten-free, same thing. It's like if people start resonating with them, then they'll start following it and they'll do it. If it doesn't, well, whatever, you're still doing cool shit. You believe in what you're doing, and then you just keep going, and then sooner or later you'll build that tribe.
I like that.
As far as I'm concerned, but
I'm going to say, so I think this guy's Fly Little Birdie. Is it Nathan or something? What's going on, man? I can't see or hear you, so I'm going to kick you out. Bye. There we go. Anybody else that wants to join, jump in. We got some new people on here. And because we had the hiccup with the recording, I'm probably going to go for another 15 minutes or so. And I hope the recordings are saved. I don't know. Anybody that, I'm just going to throw this in there. Anybody that wants to see some of the other blabs that we've done or get involved with what we're doing, there's the link. I just created some stuff there. I don't know what's happening. But there's the link to on my site where I'm hosting the blabs. And we're just, like I said earlier, we're just trying to create a much more casual conversation around some complex ideas. And sorry, Fly Little Birdie, you got to sort it out, and you got to figure out what's going on with your connection. Curtis, my man, I want you to talk about how building, I'm going to throw you on the spot, how building the right habits and processes leads to performance. Talk about that for a second.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is, it's funny because when you think of it as saying that performance is the end objective, I don't think that that's the case. I think that building systems is actually is a goal in itself. It's just like that we were doing these blabs and stuff like that. It's creating content. It's putting it out there. It's actually recording this. We're having a drink. There's so many times before, Joe, that we've been hanging out that we haven't been recording, these amazing conversations that we're having that potentially may not benefit the people that were willing to be out there and enjoying it. Scott, you participating in this, you're still allowing for, what to be put out there in a vibration that allows for change. It's being the change you want to see in the world, rather than just like expecting that, people are going to be out there writing books that you're going to read and someday make a difference. So in itself, I would say that performance is not necessarily the goal. I think that performance is a state of being with systems, with mindset, with proper processes of being able to create time. And I'm saying create time because there's, time is completely relative. A person that's really young, and when you're in elementary school, you'll probably recognize this, that your day at school seemed a lot longer than, what later on when you were in, getting older, and all of a sudden it was like, wow, this time goes by so fast. I see a lot of people, especially around my age group, being, I'm 37.
21? Oh, no. How old are you? Under the beard, you look like 19.
Well, I feel like 80, but
Send some of that
I'm 37, and people
keep going. Curtis, keep going. Talk to us about your butcher shop.
People say that time's going so fast, and it just keeps getting slower, and the days get shorter, and everything else. But the truth is that you create your time with intention. You create your time with how you feel, and So I could get into like the physics of this and the philosophy of this and everything else, but if you're interested, just read into it, look into it. People say that, it's just like it's the holy grail. If you can grow hair from a pill, or if you can create time with a pill, then you're automatically going to, sell trillions of dollars of it. But the truth is that it is within yourself to be able to create time. It's possible. Do it. You can do that through multiple different ways, and I'd love to discuss it. We probably could do a whole blab just on creating time for yourself. But when it comes down to it, if I could give anybody any advice and just as encouragement for themselves, is just be kind to yourself.
Absolutely.
Have proper boundaries and just honor a principle of kindness to self. and automatically right away, it's just like this weight gets lifted off your shoulders, and then things happen and gives you like this empowerment to just create and be authentic and be real. And then people resonate with it. And then all of a sudden you get into a flow, and then it's like you're surfing the wave of life rather than the wave just crashing down on you constantly.
Fancy.
So just
Some Yoda stuff right there, man. I love it.
That's some deep shit, man. Surfing the wave of life. And Curtis, that's it, man. As you get into that flow, and it's I think I'm trying to remember how to pronounce it. It's like Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, right? Mihai. I'm trying to remember that wrote the book Flow. I bought that. Awesome book. Flow is just a wonderful book about how do we get into that flow state all the time. And that's what we're looking for, man. Is like one of the books I always talk about is Thinking Fast and Slow, talking about the two different brains that we have. Our system 1 and system 2 is engaging that conscious brain much more often. I'm going to answer Mel's question here, an experience for you when you've been stuck and how you change it in order to move forward. Now, I'm gonna talk not so much on stuck, but I'm gonna go back into that fix, find, and prevent thing I was telling you about. Here's an example: is I do a lot of coaching and training for organizations, and I'll have teams on my calls. And so once I started doing that, what I was noticing is that I would go on to like a training call with a big group of say like 40 or 50 people, and it was like a webinar or training, and we would be on the call. And I'd be like, how did everybody do with the stuff we talked about last week? And people would just say, oh, I just got busy. I didn't have time to do it. And it would go like this. And then what ended up happening, you do that a number of times, and they start to say, well, we're not getting a lot of value out of this. This isn't working for us. And then they start to slowly stop showing up. The attendance drops until eventually the contract ends. And so for me, it's like, that's soul crushing, right? Because I'm like, I think I'm fun. But then what I had to start to do, we talk about reaction. I would go on to these calls and say, hey, listen, I'm not here just to entertain you guys. I'm here to help you solve problems. I need you guys to be more productive. And it was like, that was kind of resonating, but not. So what I realized is we need to bring it back to the original conversation. Before we start anything, we need to set the tone for our relationship. This applies to business. This applies to your family, your kids, your doctor. And I said, here's the thing. The way that I work is this is what's going to happen. Now, I'm going to do this hour-long session with you, and it doesn't and it applies to Whiskey Friday. Let's say, for example, here, it doesn't matter what we talk about in this hour. What matters is what you do with the 6 days and 23 hours in between. That's really going to make a difference. What I'm talking about right now doesn't mean anything unless you do something with it. I have lots of people that I know that buy books, and they have all these books. I'm like, now what have you applied? Well, I'm too busy to apply it. So they're constantly just reading things. They can regurgitate shit, but they never put it to the test. So anything you're going to do, even if you read like one paragraph, do something with it. And so that was a challenge that I had with my business, where I was like, okay, and once I start the relationship with we start to prime people. When you start feeling like this, or when you start thinking like this, I want you to remember this. Because if you wait until you get into that scenario, then you are basically making excuses, trying to fix it. And you're constantly fixing shit that could have been prevented in the beginning. So that's a challenge. That's one thing that I constantly do with my business, with my clients, even in our relationship. We decide what are the priorities, what's the nature of our relationship, and when these kinds of things happen, how do we address them? So that before you get into that mode, especially if you get in a heated argument with your loved one, if you've already established the ground rules before you're there, it's much easier to simplify that conversation, because you guys have both agreed how we're going to behave when these things happen. Does that make sense, guys? Yeah?
Totally.
absolutely.
Totally.
And Mel, I went on a little rant there. Mel, does that answer your question? Because I just said what I wanted to say. So Whiskey Friday.
I'll give a really quick one. This isn't personal or anything like that. I mean, it's personal, I guess, because it happens to me. But there's a lot of the place that I work. There's a lot of really smart, really creative, really talented people, and they are all, and in not a bad way, but they're all very opinionated. And so when a lot of us get, and I'm no different, when we all get into a room and we're trying to solve a problem, sometimes there's just so much chatter going back and forth that we start going down these rabbit holes, and we're not addressing what it was that we got into that meeting to address anymore. And sometimes I feel like that happens in personal conversations. You know, you and your wife, you and your girlfriend, whatever, you start off with this one problem, and all of a sudden you're talking about something that happened 6 months ago. Mm. And so sometimes I think that if you start to get lost in a conversation, whether it's personal, business, whatever, that one way to get unstuck or, you know, get the thing over with, get the thing done, hey buddy, is my dog wants to get in on the conversation, is to be like, okay, I would if I had enough space back here. I'm kind of up against a wall. You want to come in the conversation? But
keep going.
Is to just be like, you don't have to be rude about it, but I've been a little bit rude about it in conversations. But like, guys, just shut up, okay? We are going in so many different directions right now. What is the question that we are trying to answer, or the problem that we are trying to solve right now? Just say it in one sentence. What is it? And we can solve it. So I don't know if that helps at all, but that's something that I tend to do when I get lost in a problem, is just go, what are we actually trying to solve? Define it in one sentence. Oh. Cat's on the lawn.
And you know what? You're right too. Is one thing I used to work for, and I have a lot of clients that are in the education space. And so I did 14, 15 years in private education, and my job was always sales and executive and doing a lot of that stuff. And we would always, just like you said, is we would go into these meetings, and I always use 3 words. I'd say, based on what? People had tons of ideas. Everybody's got opinions. Everybody's got ideas. We got to go back and say, what's the point here? What's the purpose? What is this based on? Is let's get back to what matters. And if you all agree on one fundamental principle, so for us in education was student success, right? We all believe that's what we're doing. So every conversation we have, how does this lead to that student success? When we talk about relationships, my girlfriend and I are always talking about the success of our relationship. What do we want that relationship to look like? Not about who's going to do dishes, who's going to do this. It's about what does a successful relationship look like? And that's what we're both working towards. So when we get into an argument, we both say, how does this serve our common goal? And it strips away having to negotiate, having to have a power struggle, having to do anything that doesn't serve the goal or the shared value or the vision that we've already predetermined, right? And so that's something that's always really helpful in business, and is to say, stop, what's our goal? How does this achieve that goal? And people go, oh, because it's really easy to get off topic and say, how does this, we're just talking about stuff. Like somebody's going to give me ideas. Somebody's going to tell Curtis, this is what you guys should do with your salon. But if that doesn't go towards your goal, it's easy to say that doesn't fit the model, right? Do I ever use why instead of what? We talk why all the time, Paul. Paul, jump in here, man. Paul Murray. I'm assuming that's Paul Murray. Just say yes, It's Paul Murray. But Paul Murray's the reason I checked out Blab. He sent me a link back in like October. He's like, I think you should check Blab out. And I was like, so Paul's the reason you guys are all suffering through this whiskey fueled conversation. And Paul's gonna join. Oh, this is awesome. Paul, bound to get the friction on. Hey, fellas. But yeah, that's we always use why, man. We always start from why. We like Simon Sinek, all that stuff. And it's easy to get caught in that mindset of let's talk about why, but you have to believe in the why. You have to really you can't just create a why from a marketing standpoint. I'm seeing a lot of people doing that now because they're riding the coattails of this why movement. Is like you guys know what I'm talking about, this why movement that we're seeing everywhere. And I think it's almost forced. So somebody's got to come up with another movement. And when I started talking about authenticity, it's like everybody else is talking authenticity. So I feel like a douchebag talking about authenticity and being genuine because they're now buzzwords. I'm like, what words can I use to just be normal? Like that's why he's talking about don't be a weirdo, because nobody's saying weirdo, but now people are starting to say weirdo. I'm like, damn it. So like we just have to, Curtis, we have to create a new language, man.
Well, it's one of those things, though, that it may not be that way. We see that because it's like buying a new car. If you buy like a white BMW in a certain year, all of a sudden now everywhere you go, you see white BMWs. So, you know what, like same thing, like we have the salon movement and everything I hear about is a movement. We see authenticity. Everybody's talking about authenticity. Started saying brother and, sister to each other about a year ago. And it's just like really picked up, and that's what it's all about. And how fortunate we get to have our brother Paul here with us today. This guy's got a lot of nuggets of wisdom. This is a perfect network for you, Paul. I have no idea why I've never seen you on a blog before, because this suits your style perfectly.
Well, I decided.
Yeah, go. What's up, buddy?
I decided that Blab was better than the bar because every time I go into the bar, people are staring at their devices and clicking away. At least people here are paying attention.
Oh my God, that you just absolutely crushed it on that comment. You know what? You got to go like George Costanza. That's it for me. I'm out of here. You can just leave on a high note, man. That was such you're so poignant. You just roll in and just say cool shit. That's it.
Well, that's good. I'm out of here.
Wow. You just melted my mind. Paul Murray, I miss you. I just saw you the other day, but no, that's so
well.
true.
What we need, Paul, though, is we need Blab lounges where we have waitresses that serve us drinks during the show. So if we could just have waitresses that serve drinks to us while we're talking to our devices, and you know, what do you guys think? Do you think that next week we should have a hosted Blab with waitresses that serve us drinks?
Man. I don't know what you mean, but anyways, let's go back to Paul for a second.
My attention span is fairly limited, Curtis. If we start,
Paul's like, I just want to talk to
conversation. I might as well not be here.
No, Paul. So you like for some reason you're like my maverick and source of like cool shit that you send me. You're like, hey, have you seen this? I'm like, why is Paul always like tech forward? So you get your finger on the pulse. You found Blab and then you sent it to me. And now what have you been doing stuff with Blab? Talk to us about what you've been working on and some of the stuff. And also because we're coming towards the end of this episode, we're gonna keep talking after this, but I want to stop the recording soon. I hope it works. But talk to us about how habits and processes, things that you're putting in place, and why Blab. Roll that all into one neat package, so I don't have to keep talking. Go. Okay.
Well, as far as Blab goes, I'm always looking for something to improve communications. I started my business career in the airline business, and if I don't ever see another airport again, I'm a happy camper. So anytime I can communicate with people quickly and efficiently, I'm looking for it. So that's why I'm always on the lookout for new processes. Now, as far as processes go, you know, let's go back to the airline business again. Nothing happens there until a tick mark is on a sheet. If you don't have your processes in place, and the one thing you knew every day at work in the airline business was whatever you planned to do that day wasn't going to happen, because that's the way life is. For sure. You know, so if you don't have everything ready and in order and have your systems in place, when the proverbial brown stuff hits the fan, you're at a loss. If you have your systems, then you know what needs to be done. And even though it may not happen because the flight that was supposed to be there isn't there, you still know what has to be done. So your systems keep you, they're like a safety net or a bunch of little minions in the background that keep you on track and give you confidence that you can handle all of this strange stuff that might come your way. And I hope for strange stuff to happen in my days. You know, the wilder the days are, the better it is. You're in the right place. You're in the right place then. Anyway, no, you know, that's so cool, man. That's kind of what when we started talking earlier, that's the whole part, is when you have the right systems and cool shit in place, then that allows you to have the flexibility and the freedom for anything can happen. And that's kind of what you're saying, right? Is that anything is going to happen, especially in the busy airline when you're dealing with lots of people, weird stuff will happen, and quite consistently. But if you don't have the systems in place, then when weird stuff happens, then all you can do is react. And that's when people get stressed. That's when people get overworked and they say stupid things and they just make bad choices. But if you have the systems in place, that gives you a framework to operate within and be able to react accordingly and have fun with dealing with crap. Because there's a system and it allows you to have creativity and personality and authenticity within a framework. And once you have that, you're golden. Is that what you're talking about? Kind of? Yeah, exactly. It gives you the confidence to take challenges and change on, because you know the fallback. And the other thing is, you know, you're going to screw up, and you have the system in place that once that's happened, you go back and look at it and say, okay, what do we do now? How will we not do this the same way again? And this is something that I see a lot, where people, you know, they make the same mistake over and over without saying to themselves, hey, why did this go wrong? Let's fix it. Yeah.
So I'm just throwing your quote. Just tell me if I got this quote wrong, but that's what I'm saying there. Should say give you, but that's essentially it.
Yeah.
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 There you go. Cool. So you know what? I think we've talked a bunch about this topic, and we're not leaving, but I'm going to stop the recording in a few moments here. I want to go around the horn here. And Scott, I'm really stoked that you joined. Paul, you joined. That's great. Curtis, you know what? I love you always. I'm gonna go Scott, then Curtis, then Paul, and then I'll finish up. We do like Jerry Springer's final thoughts kind of thing. Give us your last idea around why it's important to build habits, systems, processes, and how it helps you stay sane. So I'll go Scott. What did I say? Scott, Curtis, Paul, and then me.
I think I'll build off of your last point about the staying sane part. Like Curtis was saying, the word is busyness, right? Mm-hmm. If once you get to that point where you're wanting to get things done, you're wanting to make moves, you're wanting to make progress and do it better, then you kind of find yourself in a state of feeling stressed out if you're not constantly doing something. And without those habits in place, you just get lost. You really just get lost, and you start to beat yourself up and be like, I'm sucking. And you don't feel like you're making any progress at all. You don't feel like you're making any moves. But if you can build those habits and say, this is what I want to do and this is what I want to get done, and you see those things being done, then even if you get to the end of the day and you may not feel as great as you did the day before, you know that you made moves and you know that you made progress because you fulfilled your habits.
Love it. Very cool. Curtis.
Well, I really enjoyed today. Thank you very much for putting this together, Joe. I think that's a great conversation, and I think the three aspects are perfect. If I could say anything, I guess that's, there were enough seeds in the conversation in the past hour to create an amazing garden of success. Take that. I'd say that the water. If we look at it, kind of the water as being the performance and the sun is the time, I would say the most important aspect of this is your heart and mindset's investment in the systems that you can create that allow for you to be able to really, really bring this together to be able to make an amazing opportunity for proper habits, really great, authentic communication, and kindness to self through personal success.
Awesome.
Love it. Look at you, man. You're balling. Paul, my friend Paul Murray. Hey. Man, we're gonna keep talking, but I'm so glad you joined. You're the reason. Paul.
Yes.
Keep going.
So look, to me, good habits is particularly, but habits and systems simply allow you to recognize change and to manage it. Mm-hmm. It's that simple. If you don't know what your habit or your routine or whatever you want to call it is, if you don't know it, you can't see change coming. If you're just walking around doing things, change is going to hit you right out of the blue. But if you have a system where you know something should be happening and it's not, then change has to happen, and it allows you to recognize and manage it. So,
yeah,
and have fun with it.
That's it, right?
Yeah.
And that's I love what you said earlier is about man, you said you just showed up and just dropped gold on us. You're just like you're like the Blab Fairy. That's who you are, man. You just show up. It's like you brought in a ringer. I was like, things are okay. Welcome, Paul Murray. Boom, just like. Anyways, so. Here's what I would say, and you talk about systems and change. I worked, I think some of you guys know Domenico, who was a partner of mine in a bunch of projects, and he is like a world-renowned business consultant from Italy, PhD, him and his wife, just wonderful people. One of the best lessons I learned from him and some of the concepts we talked about was in the realm of variation. And I teach this all the time to my clients is like, let's look at all the stuff you got going on and let's start to track it. And so if we're talking about performance, mindset, or time, you start to look at what's going on in your day. And usually it goes like this. It's all over the place. And if we structure that on a graph, most of the time your processes and your stuff is out of control. Sometimes it's awesome. Sometimes it's shitty, right? You guys know what I'm talking about, right? And so sometimes it's great, sometimes it's shitty. And in sales, we talk about in terms of performance, so 1 month you're the hero, next month you're the GOAT, right? And so we always are like, well, how do I stop that from happening? If we plotted 2 points on a chart, it's like, well, this is better, this is worse. But if it's also here and here, it's like, well, this is better and also worse. So everything's always better and worse from something else. Our goal is not to do that, but to figure out what is the trend and figure out the variation in those trends, the oscillation between great and shitty, and then figure out what that gap looks like so we can shrink the variation, so we can keep that under control, so that we have so much predictability, like Paul was saying, in our days with our checklist, so that we have a lot higher ability to predict plus or minus forecasting, 5% versus 30% plus or minus. Once we have that under control, then we add new things. So if you want, let's say, for example, you want to get your diet under control, you don't have to do crazy things. You just have to stop weird things from happening. Now you're into control. Then you add a couple things. As long as you stay in control and you keep going up and up, now your trend is upwards. And that's one thing that I've always learned about habits and processes. You don't have to fix everything. You got to figure out what you're currently doing, get your shit into control, and then add a few things, and then get that into control, then add a few things. But I think people are just not patient enough to work the long game and bring things constantly into control, because they always want the home run. They want the big win. So if you're trying to figure out what's the next big thing, fuck that. Figure out what's the next thing that I can keep into control so that you can stay sane and take care of yourself, your family, your business. Does that make sense? Yeah?
Yeah.
There you go. So there we go. So that's it for today, Whiskey Friday. I hope any of this recordings work, because we had lots of technical stuff in the middle. I'm going to pause the recording, and then we're going to keep talking. So anybody that's on here right now, keep chatting. And that's it for Whiskey Friday. Peace out, home peoples.